Alright, Squidlings, it's out. I have published my second paper about using the free energy principle in embodied artificial intelligence. A link to the paper in Science Advances is in the description, and I think this paper blows my first paper out of the water. It's not about exploring a maze. It's about exploring language as if language is a maze. Let's think about it. Check out this robot I made in the physics simulator PyBullet. I named him Trucky. It's supposed to be like a truck crane. You know, a truck that has a crane on it. Duh. The camera and the wheels, they're just cosmetic. Trucky actually had a cute face at the beginning of this project, but we decided it should have a camera instead. Trucky controls the angular velocity of its body and its arms' joints. It sees a picture from the camera, feels touch with 16 sensors, and feels proprioception. I didn't know that was a word. It means to feel the angles and velocities of its arms' joints. Trucky also hears two voices, which we'll talk about in a minute. I want Trucky to be able to perform 6 different tasks with these objects, which come in 6 different colors with 5 different shapes. I made the shapes radially symmetrical so they look the same from all angles. We can put 2 objects on either side of Trucky and give it a goal. Do this task to the object of this color and this shape. To do that, Trucky needs to understand observations, actions, and the words connected to them. The tasks are watching an object from a distance, being near an object, touching the top of an object, pushing an object forward, pushing an object to the left, and pushing an object to the right. The shapes are a pillar, a pole, a dumbbell, a cone, and an hourglass. They can be the colors red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, or yellow. The voices Trucky hears are sequences of 3 one-hot vectors representing words. One of the voices is the command voice, giving it the goal, a verb, an adjective, and a noun, like watch the red pillar. The other voice is the feedback voice, which is like a narrator. It's always silent unless Trucky does something which could be commanded as a goal. Then the feedback voice says that goal's verb, adjective, and noun, just like the command voice would. I'll tell you all about how Trucky's brain works, but first, let's just skip to some results. After training, Trucky is so successful that I actually think it's kind of boring. It's learned enough that we can command it to do stuff pretty reliably. Hey, Trucky, touch the top of the red pole. Look, it sees that this object is the wrong shape and color, so it turns until it sees the correct object. Then, boom, Trucky touches its top. Hooray for Trucky! Now push the red pillar to the left. And bingo. With 6 tasks, 6 colors, and 5 shapes, that's 180 total possible goals. But actually, we only trained Trucky with 60 of them, 1/3 of them. The goals that I just showed you were from the 120 goals Trucky didn't train with. The fact Trucky can do them anyway means it understands generative compositionality. It doesn't interpret the verb, adjective, and noun as just one big chunk. It can interpret the words independently. Trucky has never heard the goal, push the green dumbbell to the right. But it has heard push to the right, green, and dumbbell in separate goals. And it can use those experiences to understand this new combination. We didn't teach Trucky to learn that. It figured it out itself. But still, I think those results are so successful that they're boring. What's interesting is how Trucky acts when it's only half-trained. Check this out. A half-trained Trucky doesn't know how to touch the top of the yellow dumbbell, so it's not going to succeed. But Trucky is learning. Watch it push that stuff around. It just wants to see what happens. It's almost playing with it like a little kid. You can see the same behavior in push the red dumbbell to the left. and push the magenta dumbbell to the right. How do humans learn language? That's a seriously debatable topic. Noam Chomsky points out the poverty of the stimulus. That's especially relevant in this day and age. Large language models, LLMs, like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and so on, are built based on petabytes of data. That's thousands of terabytes, millions of gigabytes of just pure text. You can't upload petabytes of text data into a baby. And if you could, if you somehow uploaded all of Shakespeare into a baby and it started to quote Hamlet, I still don't think that baby would actually understand what it's saying. The baby's understanding of words wouldn't be perceptually grounded.
Hola. Me llamo es Brian.
That was pretty good. But actually, when you said me llamo es Brian, you don't need the ace. Just me llamo Brian.
Oh, you speak English?
No, just that first speech and this one explaining it.
You're kidding, right?
¿Qué?
Compared with LLMs, babies don't have nearly enough language data to learn grammar, but they do anyway. Chomsky proposes that this is because our brain evolved to have grammar built in, a language acquisition device. But whether that's the case or not, humans first learn individual words by rote, and then learn how to connect the words in new ways. How can humans make a mental map combining words and stuff? A mental map so robust that they can understand combinations of words they've never seen before. Well, we can't tell if Truckee is learning the same way as humans do, but reinforcement learning seems to work, and the free energy principle seems to help. Let's pry open Truckee's brain. I already described reinforcement learning and the soft actor-critic method in my video about my first paper. The Cliff's Notes: a neural network called an actor makes actions it thinks will impress another neural network called a critic. The critic predicts the extrinsic rewards we give the robot for doing what we want. The rewards are just numbers. The robot wants big positive numbers. The critic also cares about intrinsic rewards the robot sort of makes for itself, such as entropy, which basically means that the actor chooses random stuff. That means if the robot doesn't know what we want it to do, it'll explore randomly until it just so happens to find out what we want. What really matters is that in that first paper, I invented a new intrinsic reward, which I call hidden state curiosity. There are a lot of different definitions of curiosity, but this one's mine. I also described the free energy principle in that video, but describing the FEP is always tough, and I want to have a rematch with that challenge. The free energy principle says that biological agents, like us squids, and humans too, I guess, want to minimize a term in information theory called free energy, which is equal to complexity minus accuracy. We want high accuracy, low complexity. I like to describe it like this. Imagine there's a gambler playing a game with a coin. He shows us a coin that has heads on both sides. He flips it. And we're supposed to call it. That's easy. I think it'll be a heads. That's all there is. Correct. High accuracy, low complexity. We called the flip right, and we still understand the coin. Now the gambler shows us a new coin, which has heads and tails. He flips it, and we predict, let's guess it's a heads again. It's actually a tails. We didn't call the flip right, so we weren't accurate. We'll only be accurate about half the time, assuming it's a fair coin, but our complexity is still low, because, it's a coin. We know what coins are like. We're not surprised when you get a tails. That's just something that can happen when you flip a coin. The gambler flips it again, and we predict, let's guess it's a tails. But actually, it's a smiley face? Now we're inaccurate, and our understanding of the coin has completely changed. That's high complexity. Our prior worldview, it's just a regular coin, is different from our posterior worldview, that it's a weird coin. We're all shaken up. We want stability, so our prior and posterior worldviews match. There are two ways to do this. We could leave the gambler and stay in a dark room forever. We'll never be surprised again. Or we can say, "Gimme that coin," and check the sides. A smiley face and a picture of a duck. The duck was surprising. When we saw it, we got high complexity again. But now the coin won't surprise us anymore. That's what Truckee is supposed to do. Explore for surprising information until it knows everything it needs to know to do what we want it to do. So, that's the free energy principle. We can make all this happen with active inference. In addition to an actor and a critic, the robot has a world model, aka forward model. There's lots of names for it. This world model is a recurrent neural network, which is trained to predict Truckee's future observations. Which means, well, explaining RNNs is also tough, and I want to take that challenge again too. RNNs are the kind of neural network models used for text or video, anything coming in a sequence. RNNs can handle sequences by recording information it thinks is important in a hidden state. Imagine you're in a line of people who are being sent into a room, one by one, to do some kind of task together. When it's your turn, you go into the room and there's like an object, and you're supposed to do something, you don't know what. But there's also a notebook. The person ahead of you in line wrote notes about what the object was like when they came in, what they did with the object, and what the person before them wrote in the notebook too. There's enough information there for you to know what you're supposed to do.
Pop it, twist it, squeeze it, shake it, poke it.
On your way out, you leave notes for the next person in line, so they know what to do too. That's an RNN. Recurrent neural networks take inputs and make outputs, but they also get hidden states from the past and make hidden states for the future. Anyway, Truckee's world model is an RNN which is trained to predict Truckee's future observations, and it comes with a little twist to incorporate the free energy principle. We use the hidden state and the action to make a prior worldview, which is a probabilistic understanding of the world, like what we knew about the coin. We use the hidden state and the action and the observation to make a posterior worldview, another probability distribution, like what we know now about the coin after seeing it flipped. Comparing the prior and posterior gives us the complexity term. Truckee's world model wants to minimize free energy. It wants high accuracy, making good predictions about the future, and it wants low complexity with a stable worldview. Meanwhile, Truckee's actor and critic are sort of like pranksters for its world model. The critic considers extrinsic rewards, which we give it, and intrinsic rewards, entropy, and curiosity, which I define based on the world model's complexity term. While Truckee's world model wants low complexity, the actor and critic want high complexity. Truckee ain't stayin' in no dark room. Truckee's gonna grab that coin to see the duck. This can make it look like Truckee's a child, just playing around. And that's how Truckee can learn all it needs to know. In my first paper, I showed that this stuff works. I've got a rubber duck in a maze. I wanted to use a rat or a mouse, but I couldn't find a 3D model of a rat or a mouse, so I used a duck. And the duck is trained to find the maze's exits. The ducks most often found the best exits when I let it have curiosity. In this second paper, I wanted to make Truckee explore language as if language itself is a maze, making a map connecting observations, actions, and words. And like I showed with the results, I did it. Watch Truckee go! Let's look a little closer at Truckee's brain. It's got multiple prior and posterior worldviews, one for each part of its observation. That means we can make Truckee more curious or less curious about vision or touch or proprioception or the feedback voice. The command voice, it's constant. It never changes no matter what Truckee does, so there's nothing to be curious about there. We trained 10 Truckees in 3 different ways. That's a total of 30 truckies. None of these truckies got nearly as much information as an LLM gets, and truckies only got data that they collected for themselves. First, we trained them with no curiosity at all. Truckies didn't learn very well like that. Here are the rolling average success rates with those task goals which the truckies never saw in training, with 99% confidence intervals. This plot is for all of the tasks in general, and each of these plots is for an individual task. You can see, truckies had trouble learning to push stuff left and right. Understanding these tasks requires understanding the other tasks, like be near. But we next train truckies with curiosity for vision, touch, and proprioception, and these truckies learned way better. We also trained truckies with those curiosities and also curiosity for the feedback voice, and that made truckies learn the best they could. Think about what that means. Truckee learned what words mean by trying to provoke the feedback voice to say things. Truckies explored the meanings of words just like ducks explored mazes. This gives us a lot of results we can look into. We can find the principal components of Truckee's interpretations of command voices. We can use the two most important principal components as X and Y coordinates to make a plot like this. Halfway through training, Truckee's understandings of tasks and colors are a little muddled. We know that verbs and adjectives are separate, but Truckee hasn't figured that out yet. For Truckee, the meanings of verbs and adjectives impact each other. But after training, Truckee interprets verbs the same way no matter what adjectives are next to them. This is generalized compositional learning, somehow without Noam Chomsky's language acquisition device. Truckee faced a constant minimalist grammar, so it's not that impressive, but maybe a language acquisition device could have made it understand faster. Now check this out. On the left, we have Truckee's success rates with learned goals, the goals that Truckee's trained with. On the right, you already saw this plot a while ago, it's Truckee's success rates for unlearned goals. You can see Truckees learned to generalize pretty well. But this is when Truckees were trained with all 6 tasks, all 6 colors, and all 5 shapes. If we ignore a task, a color, and 2 shapes, and 10 Truckees never see them, but not in training and not in testing, do you think these Truckees with less vocabulary will generalize faster or slower? Slower. And with an even smaller vocabulary, slower still. Truckees generalized quicker with a larger vocabulary because the higher variety of data required generalization to understand anything. With smaller vocabularies, Truckees only slowly felt the need to break away from learning by rote. And now, the pièce de résistance. I hope that's how you pronounce it.
In French, this would be said pièce de résistance.
Exception handling. Languages have exceptions. For example, the past tense of walk is walked, and the past tense of talk is talked. But the past tense of run isn't runned, it's ran. Human children sometimes seem to handle exceptions with U-shaped learning curves. I've met elementary school teachers who say they see this all the time. Regular words, kids just learn them. Exceptions, kids just learn them too. But then, when kids learn to generalize, they assume the exceptions follow the same rules as everything else. So the kids get worse at handling exceptions. But eventually, kids learn that those are exceptions, and they make rules to handle them. Would Truckee learn about exceptions like that too, with a U-shaped learning curve? I trained another 10 Truckees with 2 of their goals swapped. When the command voice says, "Watch the magenta pillar," it actually means, "Be near the green pole." And when the command voice says, "Be near the green pole," it actually means, "Watch the magenta pillar." Can Truckees handle this? Yes, they can, sometimes, and sometimes with U-shaped learning curves. At the start, this Truckee learns the exceptional goals just like it learns any other goal. If we look at principal component analysis of the goals with the tasks watch or be near and circle the two exceptions, we can see it's just a blur. Halfway through training, Truckee learned generalization and knows what individual words mean. But that makes it harder for Truckee to understand the exceptional goals. This circled exception is near watch goals, even though it really means be near. And this circled exception is near be near goals, even though it really means watch. But after all its training, Truckee has noticed those are exceptions. The exceptions are placed correctly near goals that are actually similar. Truckee learned with a U shape. So, there you have it. There's more in the paper, but now I'm just exhausted. Overall, to make a statement as cautiously as possible, because I'm not trying to say Truckee is a human, it seems like Truckee learned about a basic language in some ways which could be said to resemble some ways human children learn about language. What I just showed you consumed the last 2 or 3 years of my life, but I think it was worth it. Now a lot of things make a lot more sense to me, and I got to share it with you. So, see you next time, Squidlings.